Hello everyone and welcome to another session of Coffee with Developers. As you know, this format is all about getting interesting behind-the-scenes insights from interesting developers from all around the world, getting some suggestions on how to improve our life and our career as developers. And today we have a very special guest. He is the CIO of REWE, which is one of the largest retailers in Europe. But more important than that, he's not only the CIO, and he's not only now in the top management position, but he's actually a computer engineer for a very long time, and he's also a bit nerdy. You can see the fire in his eyes when we talk about technology and software development. And I'm very proud to welcome Andreas Koenig here with us. Hello, Andreas. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Hello.
How are you doing?
Super happy to be here. Yeah? It's a fantastic location, fantastic opportunity to chat with you. You know, I've just returned to Austria, right? So I spent quite a bit of time abroad, living in Germany and in Belgium, but now I'm back at home, so to speak. So super happy to be invited here. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. And good to know. We are recording here from Talent Garden in Vienna. It's really indeed a nice location. And as I said, I'm very happy that you are here. Also, I want to say personally thank you, because the last, I would say 18 months, we have done a lot of virtual stuff, a lot of virtual events, a lot of virtual interviews. So it's really a pleasure to also, again, have an in-person conversation, right?
At last we meet.
Yes. Exactly. That's cool. So, Andreas, we don't want to talk too much about your management stuff today. We want more to get the developer out of you today, because the session is Coffee with Developers. So tell me, what was your first contact with technology, with software development? How did you develop your passion there? Give us some insights. How did all of that start?
You know, the management career track that I'm on now is bit of accidental. Yeah? I started in technology because I fell in love with computers at a very early age. So started out in the personal space with Commodore, of course, and a few other things that taught me that code is powerful. Right.
Yeah.
So
was this your first computer, the C64? Or?
It was. It was.
What did you do with it?
Small scale stuff. Yeah. So started to teach myself coding, basic back in the day, but very early arrived at a stage where it wasn't basic anymore. It was just poking bytes into the storage directly to achieve advanced stuff. And that was really fulfilling to me. Okay, so I felt that technology is what makes me happy. That's why I decided that I would like to turn it into a career. Decided to study computer science, which I did at Vienna University of Technology. Brought me to Vienna, which was an entirely new world for me to explore. Yeah? So from the home personal computing space, then back in the day to larger systems, eventually ending up in the mainframe space. Things that as a child I enjoyed watching movies like War Games or Tron. The big mainframe that was the thing we all aspired to be working on. Turned out to be pretty boring in the end, actually. Yeah? Mainframe C series, COBOL coding. 20 years later, we all wanted to get rid of it, migrate off the legacy systems in the financial industry onto more modern systems, right? Okay,
good. But maybe let's come into the present. So, I mean, you have joined at the beginning of this year. We are in 2021. For the ones watching us later on demand, REWE. It is a retail company, a big retail company here, especially in the German market, but in whole Europe actually. As a developer, I might not think that retail is such an interesting industry to work in. But while preparing a bit for this session, I found out that there are quite some interesting projects. But first, maybe what was your motivation to go into this section? Because first it was kind of medicine, computer vision, then it was finance,
media,
consulting, finance, then media. Everything kind of has to do a lot with data. So I think you love data, data stuff and analytics. Then again, financial industry, analytics a lot, and so on. And now you go into the retail sector. Why?
Probably the same answer. lots of data, still critically underutilized, what we can do based on that humongous amount of raw data, and at the beginning of a transformation. Okay, so retail in Austria specifically is very much early days about becoming more digitalized. Okay, so the old world of retail, classical brick and mortar stores, complicated enough, like you said. So as a consumer, before you walk through the door in the morning of a typical supermarket, many things have to happen before the things you want to buy are on the shelves. So the logistics and the planning of what to move, where, when, that's super complicated already, and is a really good basis for this digitalization. You know, we're now only starting to get serious about online shopping, about e-commerce in the food space. Well, colleagues will tell you we've been doing that for 15 years. Yeah, that's true. But the really exciting development started with the pandemic, with the crisis, and more people ordering online and expecting an excellent service, which was super hard to do based on the old processes. Brick and mortar supermarket process does not require real-time interaction or things like recommendation engines, which is something you absolutely have to have in the online space. And you know, being part of that transformation for me was a huge factor of why I wanted to join. Of course, coming back to Austria is another thing, because the last bit at Eurofins, that was in Belgium, so I just came back. But I think the next 5 to 10 years in the retail space in Austria is going to be crazy. Will be a real roller coaster ride.
But you're actually kicking off the transformation, kind of, right? So, I mean, I assume you're having a lot of legacy systems and so on, and now you want to basically, introduce a lot of change. How does that look like?
So there's two parts that I want to address. The one is the people, the team, and the other one is the technology itself. So both are great for now, and maybe a little while longer. But if we want to be successful, 2 years, 5 years from now, we need to change now. Okay, so the team is fantastic at delivering against challenges that they know very well. Like in the brick and mortar supermarket space, they're unbeatable. Okay, they know all the details, the business processes inside out, and they can deliver magic on demand. But in the new situation where challenges are more complex, where they're not well defined, where there is, a lot of thinking from what will work in the business rather than what's the required project that we run in IT, there the team is still challenged. So we're changing the organization. We're going from a classical hierarchical, you are the software engineers, you are the infrastructure guys, we're going to a product-based organization. So
okay, now it becomes interesting.
Small product teams, fully staffed with all the roles needed to support a portion of the service that we're providing in the team. So they're able to deliver, they're able to take decisions. So product owner able to shape the future of the product completely. Always thinking from an entrepreneurial, economical point of view, like does this feature make sense to be implemented? What will the impact be? The business outcome that we're hoping to achieve. And then high-speed delivery, able to test, able to deploy quickly, see what works, throw it in the business, see what sticks. And that was not possible in the past. So the new organization will enable that. We've defined it, we're staffing it at the moment. We're looking still for quite a bit of help in extending the team.
Can you quantify that?
Well, at the moment there's about 500 people in the team, and I'm thinking 300 in addition might be a good number to address the challenges that we have put on our agenda. So recruiting, of course, but then again, like you said, to a lot of people, the industry doesn't look super exciting, whereas it is. It's just a matter of telling the story of all those innovation projects and things that we want to deliver in the near future. So I'm hoping that more people will get excited about what we are doing here.
But that's also what we want to hear. So obviously, when you think about a retailer, I'm a software developer, I'm looking for a new job and so on, and I'm looking at the industries, and then there's the automotive industry. I can do there some, crazy stuff. There is a lot of product companies, software as a service, and so on. And I mean, the retail industry is big. It's huge. It's one of the largest in the world. But you know, you often see this thing that is visible, as you said, like brick and mortar and shops and so on and so on. But there is kind of interesting projects behind the scenes going on. So maybe you can give us a kind of an insight, because the e-commerce part is kind of obvious. And if you think it further, obviously it's also a lot about data and how to increase, I don't know, lifetime customer values and these kind of things. But there is also interesting things like autonomous delivery robots, stores where you just, you know, go into the store and go out without to pay. I mean, you pay, but in different ways you do it today and so on. I mean, this is also kind of interesting projects that maybe not many know about, that they are also developed in Europe with, from European retailers.
Okay, let me tell you a bit about those. In the end, it's about user experience, like you said. And it started already when we think about things like self-checkout, where a customer today would just scan the products that they want to buy by themselves at a checkout point, pay by card and leave, okay, as a first stage in where we start iterating. Think about not having to stop there. Think about using an app on your phone, scanning the products while you take them from the shelf, putting them in your basket, having the payment fully integrated in the app, just walking out of the store.
Would be a perfect user experience.
That's what we're working on. It's live. We have pilots doing exactly that. Works from a user point of view fantastically well. So you don't queue anymore. You know, think Saturday before Christmas, nightmare queues historically. No, you scan yourself, you just walk out of the store, you've left in 30 seconds. Okay, that's the user experience we're talking about. Next step is you don't scan anymore. We are piloting together with our colleagues in Germany a system where cameras are tracking the products being taken from the shelf. User just authenticates themselves when they enter the store. When they leave the store, they don't pay anymore. They don't scan, nothing. They just walk out and they are done, because the system knows which products have been collected into the bag.
How does that work technically? So you have a lot of cameras and computer vision stuff?
Absolutely. Lots of high resolution cameras and fast systems tracking single customers. So they're identified as customer objects, so to speak, being followed through the store. Camera from one angle out of the 6 sees what kind of product is taken. Camera knows by spatial recognition which product is in that spot in the shelf, and whether it's taken and put back or put in the bag is visible to the camera. And you know, if you look at the system, there is highlighted colors for customers and products and bags. So it's computer vision, automatic interpretation of the actions of the customer there. Failure rate very, very low. So pretty much.
So the pilot is working good?
Pilot is working really, really well, because that's one of the, you know, the concerns that you always hear. What about fraud rate? You know, what if people...
You also have a fraud rate with the classical system.
Even more so. Someone forgetting to scan a product while they walk out of the store can't happen in the new system, right?
That's interesting, because if you think about that, it's not just, you know, the computer vision part, the cameras, and, you know, matching the products with some prices and getting the money through some payment system. But there is so many things connected with that, like security, for example, data privacy, like what do you do with the recordings? I mean, obviously you maybe need to think about, do you keep the recordings to have a proof that the customer got this? But at the other point, maybe you don't need to have, not allowed to have this personal data and so on. So basically, along this project, like how many people work on such a thing?
You know, for that pilot, that is an important part. So the technology, making it work is one thing, but making it into a business model requires you then to do all the homework, including the privacy concerns and how to, you know, roll on customers, how to onboard with opt-in to the relevant parts. That's a pretty big part, and mistakes can be made. You know, when we started our big loyalty program, the REWE Bonus Club, as it's called in Austria, it was super difficult to make sure that people understand what's done with their data. right? So in the enrollment form, there was a list of things that we plan to do with the data, and we explained the benefits to customers, right? So if you think of profiling is always that word with the very negative connotation. If profiling means that you get vouchers for certain percentages off the products that you like, that's great for you. It's great for the company. Because if we are able to optimize these kind of things, we don't lose money on other products. It's good for you because the overall price point is better. So would a customer agree to that? Absolutely, because there is a benefit for them. Do we have to make sure that the customer understands that we're not abusing their data or exploiting their data for other things? Also, as well, I have to do that. That's my responsibility as a data owner. But in the end, as long as we're looking for that win-win situation, there's something for the customer, there's something for the company, we're fine. And that's the line you need to stay on the right side of. Okay.
Yeah, and also be transparent and so on. Okay, so that's one interesting pilot project. What are some other things you're working on?
Let me tell you about more of these, you would say less exciting. In the end, they are equally exciting, but they're happening in the old world, in the brick and mortar space. Let me talk a bit about forecasting and replenishment. Okay, so if you think about which products need to be in the shelf at which point in time, it should be just enough produce. If you think about fresh things like vegetables or meat. So customers find what they want to buy, but it shouldn't be too much. So things spoil. It's a big responsibility for us as a company, to make sure that we're not wasting resources that were really hard to come by. If you think about meat, for instance. So coming up with a great system to do that forecasting in a way that customers are happy, that we are happy, that we are not wasting resources, that is a big thing in our industry. So the better you're able to predict how much of each product is needed at any given point in time, the better it will be for customers, company, and the like. And that's a super difficult forecasting challenge, actually. If you think about calendar effects, it's easy to forecast Saturday, people will buy more for their weekly shopping. But how's the weather that weekend? Is the weather fine? Then they will buy more things for barbecuing, for instance. When do you need to know whether the weather will be fine in order to have enough barbecuing products in your offering, right? So the better you can forecast, the earlier you can forecast, the more the impact will be of a positive nature. That's a difficult problem to solve.
At the end, it's again user experience, right? So
Absolutely.
If you deliver the right user experience, then you will have happy customers, they will consume, so it's good for the business, but it's also, as you said, a win-win situation. That's good. Also a pattern that I see, I said that earlier already, everything you do has something to do with data. So I think you're a friend of data-driven decisions, right?
Absolutely. I'm not talking about removing people from decision-making processes, but giving them, solid data, a solid basis to take decisions on, I think is something in 2021 we have to be able to do. Okay. What's good data? It has to be relevant. It has to be, analyzed in a way that allows people to draw the right conclusions. And that's where it becomes tricky. You can mess around with data all day long without arriving at that point. So what worked for me always in each industry was to think about the business outcomes. What do we want to achieve? And then derive from there what kind of data, what kind of metrics, KPIs do we need to be able to really steer towards those business outcomes. And very often getting the data, getting the KPIs is difficult. But thinking about what needs to be done is not rocket science, right?
Yeah.
So having a bunch of smart people, giving them enough time to play around with the raw data, seeing if they can extract that value, make the KPIs, that's what always worked fine. So free up time of your data scientists, allow them really to dig in and maybe even be innovative on their own. See what else they can learn from the raw data that nobody else thought about. Like the Indiana Jones example. Same thing. They started to play with the programming, and then they realized, hey, there is way more that we can do with the raw data than we actually asked for. Okay?
How hard is it to interpret such things? Because the one thing is to collect the data. The second thing is to, let the system give you some outcomes. But at the end, still, like a human being has to make a decision based on some interpretation, or as you said, like make some conclusions out of that. And there you can also go in the wrong direction if you make the wrong conclusion. So how hard is that?
Absolutely. You can look at this from two ways. Either you can say, okay, we have a person, a human expert, deep knowledge of a certain business process, lots of experience, and that person can ask questions, smart questions. And then we try to find the answer in the data, right? Or you can go the other way around. You just let someone play with the data, not necessarily having too much of a clue about what we want to achieve. And they will find correlations. They will find patterns and things in the data that nobody thought of asking the question for. Yeah? So for instance, when we did that with TV commercials at ProSiebenSat.1, nobody asked the question, but the data scientist came back and said, do you know that advertising for pizza delivery has a 14% better conversion rate when the weather is bad?
It's kind of obvious.
Yeah, people order pizza to be delivered because they don't want to leave their home to go out. Yeah. After you realize it's obvious, but nobody thought about asking a question.
I mean,
so all the experts were not able to come up with that correlation that was in the data, that had just to be found by mechanical means, by applying your usual...
An Indiana Jones for the data stuff.
Similar thing.
That's
absolutely.
Basically how you should call the data scientist.
I'm a big fan of putting smart people, smart data scientists in a room, giving them time to think about what they can come up with. So that's the second strategy. Of course, you can come from the business side and ask the good questions, but the other one is just as valuable.
Let's talk about something different.
Jones for data science.
It's just a proposal. When we talk about data and so on, I mean, in the recent years, many people talk about blockchain. What's your opinion on that?
I have many opinions on blockchain. It's all about the applications. Huh? So what we are seeing in the crypto space is good and crazy at the same time in my view when we talk about currencies. So Bitcoin doing their thing, being still an object of investors going crazy and values changing in a very volatile way. That's one thing. But there I'm absolutely convinced that this will replace a good part of our financial stack, how we think about money, how we think about spending, transferring it. That's going to happen, absolutely. But on the other hand, it's still next to the gold rush sentiment, there is still things going on like the meme coins. If I hear of another dog-based coin, I will lose hope in our innovation, strategy here. But it's people having fun, right?
But it's not just about the cryptocurrencies, right?
No, but I'm trying to poke a bit of fun here at things that happen as we go. While we try to find use cases that have a real benefit. If you think about NFTs and people selling digital assets for crazy amounts of money at the moment, that's good. It's early days, okay? That's something that still needs to be established while we go for real use cases. I really believe that public ledgers is a great thing, that we have not exploited all the use we can have for it yet. Retail space, if you need an unforgeable proof that a certain piece of meat in your supermarket shelf really came from that organic farm or from a certain animal, and you have to prove that the full chain of processing it was proper in the sense of organic treatment and so on. It's a perfect example.
That's an interesting use case. I mean, I hear often from other people, I don't want to take sides, but I often hear, for example, blockchain technology is solving a problem that doesn't exist. Because databases and, let's say, distributed databases and data and so on have been there for years and so on, and there's other solutions. My personal opinion is that we are just missing maybe some of the good use cases. It's still in the early beginning. This was actually a good use case. What other things could you imagine in the retail sector for the blockchain technology?
I don't think we have fully understood yet what it can be used for. Okay, that's why I'm saying it's early days. And people coming up with colorful cats. No.
It's fun.
So anything that needs to be tracked, anything where contracts need to be made unforgeable and need to be available to the public for checking. Okay, so if you think about things like the supply chain, logistics, transporting things, have we really handed over certain products? Has the requirements for cooling products been kept, for instance? So all of these are processes where there are multiple stages, multiple players, and there's a chain of events that needs to be perfect in the end for the outcome to be achieved. All of this can be blockchain based in the future, plus probably 20 other things that we will laugh about 10 years from now, when we said, remember when we sat here,
which will be obvious
didn't come to our minds.
Then, right?
And then we would say, yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Obvious,
if you think about
exactly.
it, super obvious.
That's how it works, yeah. I mean, you said you are now leading a digital transformation at REWE, and it's in the retail industry, and you have big teams, and as far as I understand, you want to transform the company from, let's say, a functional organization, or functional organization to more product-focused organization structure, right? I mean, that's quite a big project. So how long time does it take?
It's a big change. You're right. It changes everything. The people, the reporting structure, the team organization. We started preparing it like a year ago. We're in the middle of figuring out the final details. Most important thing is how to get the new teams up and running while not dropping the work that needs to be done in the old mode, of course. Company depends on IT. We can't have any outages. We can't drop any ball at any time. And then the change itself, like congratulations, starting tomorrow, you will be a member of the new team. Please go to the other office and sit there and start working. It's not that easy. This needs to be really well prepared. This we will do until the end of the year, and then we will start cutting over into the new mode, launching in various waves, team by team, for 6 months. It will take 6 months until we arrive at that.
What does it mean
state.
for the technology? I mean, how much of, let's say, your technical infrastructure, your code, your software, legacy systems and so on, how much of that will change, exchange with something new?
That is the second part of the transformation. The first part is the people. Second part is technology itself. So currently, I would designate 95% of our overall system landscape as legacy.
95%?
95%.
And what are the other 5%? It's what you developed the last month? So
5% is what we recently developed, as in the last 12, 18 months. Bits of e-commerce as well as the loyalty system for your bonus club. These have been new developments that are sitting on a new stack already. But that's a small portion. The biggest part is still sitting on the old stack. Old stack.
What does it mean, old stack? What is it?
Under the hood, you would find a lot of Oracle technology, database-wise, with lots of code in the database, with the front end based on Oracle Forms, which is great technology, or used to be, but we've reached the end of life of that. Very monolithic system. Very hard to maintain, lots of effort just to keep it going, lots of manual interaction needed, which at the moment works fine due to the fact that we have great people and great teams. But that's not sustainable.
It's not future-proof.
No, we need to get off that. Especially as we're in the need to change a lot. We need to deliver new features, innovation projects every day for the.
And you need to scale.
Absolutely. Also from a utilization point of view. Super hard to scale if you're in your own data center, sitting on your own hardware. Just doesn't work. Think about seasonality. Christmas, for instance. Christmas shopping volume in a typical supermarket, 3 to 5 to 10 times as much as on a typical Tuesday, right? Think about pandemic situations, like the first lockdown. That's like 10 times Christmas. So finding that scalability, that elasticity in the systems, you absolutely have to be on a cloud service. You can't do that with your own hardware.
Let's stay at this technical discussion. So, old stack, a lot of these things. What does new stack mean to you? Like, is it just, someone comes and says, hey, I'm developing front-end with React or Angular, or so? Is it in there, or is new stack for a company of your size still something different?
So when we started to think about the new stack, we had certain design paradigms that we wanted. So resilience first has to work, it has to be stable, no outages, no successful cyber attacks. Knock on wood. Okay.
If someone from backstage can throw a wood, so we can knock. No wood. Sorry.
Resilience first.
Yeah.
API first. So everything component based, everything modular, no monolithic big pieces of software with a lot of interdependencies within the core.
A lot of microservices.
Microservices, micro, not so micro, but services, well-defined scopes, right? Cloud first. I want elasticity. If this means hybrid cloud, we have a little bit of our own stuff and a lot of cloud infrastructure, great. But elasticity, okay? I need to be able to do Christmas and 10 times Christmas as well, okay? Mobile first. Think about a consumer. Yes, mobile in hand. Think about an employee at our company, someone needing to stack shelves or needing to collect the order for an online purchase. Mobile first. They're all moving. Small fraction of our people is sitting. Most of them are moving. The logistics chain especially. People driving trucks or forklifts. It's all moving. Mobile first has to be part of the stack. So based on these design criteria, we thought about what are the components, what's the technology that we want to use. And the reflex that we wanted to teach ourselves is to go buy before we make. We will make the software application level. Of course, very often we can't buy it other than for commodity areas. But for the components in the stack, I would like to be solid, well-proven, established components. So we've chosen as a first cloud partner Google. So we're on the Google Cloud platform. I say first because the stack will allow for multiple ones. So there is enough abstraction layers that we can plug AWS or Azure into it just as well. We've chosen Kafka as a communication middleware. Very, very important if you come from a legacy world where there is no dedicated communication system, where it's database-based communication. One piece of software writes in the database, another one reads from the database. That's a nightmare. Okay, so proper communication that comes with the need to slice your data. You really need to know data objects, who is the owner, which product, which team is the owner of what part of the data. You need governance, like how do APIs work, like versioning. Old version, new version, when there are calls. And that puts you into the functional space. So technology has the impact on the functional space. You need functional architects, enterprise architects, people who understand the business process enough to do the slicing, like what goes where, and to do the governance. Like the system will evolve, it will change all the time. So a new thing, where do we build it? In that module, in this product, or where's the data object? So front-end wise, yes, fully browser-based, Angular, Bootstrap, all your usual suspects. But the paradigm there is browser-based, no installation, no software, ideally fully abstracted from the client hardware, client system that is running on.
And when we talk about that, we don't only talk about like the e-commerce part for the customers, but we talk about like the whole software, like internally, the logistics,
absolutely,
the whole chain. That's interesting. I mean, it feels like building a software company inside an existing business from the scratch.
You're right, because we need to put together all the bits and pieces that we need to deliver, and that's only the preparation, right? Designing the stack, choosing the parts. But then we need to start migrating. We need to build new pieces. Those new pieces would be, in the sense of a minimal viable product, a small set of functionality that's running in the new world on the new stack. And that bit has to coexist with the old world, right? We don't want to big bang after 10 years of software engineering, all the 95%. We want to go step by step and iterate. So making that coexistence work is a challenge in itself.
Okay, and I mean, when we talk about challenges, what's your next steps here? Like what you said, you're looking for 300 more people, if I remember right.
That's what I think today. In the end, it's going to be more.
How do you find them? Like how do you convince them to work for you? Or what's the benefits? What's your pitch actually?
You know, I think it's about technology and projects and purpose, that people want to work for a certain company or not. Okay, so you get them interested with technology. So yeah, we have a great stack. We've thought about the components. We thought about how we want to do things. Based on that, we will do great projects. Talk about the outcome. Talk about like we said earlier. It's not just that we are replacing the old software with new software. We make software that achieves a certain goal, a goal that is beneficial for everyone. And then in the end, why are we doing that? What's the purpose? Why are we here? You know, we are an internal IT organization. Our reason for existence has to be super clear. You know, lots of companies outsource their IT. They ask Accenture, Capgemini, HCL to run IT. Those who understand how important it is and what the benefit for the company is, don't do that. They choose to have their own people, and they make sure that those IT people are very much integrated in what the business wants to achieve. We define our own targets, our own goals across business and IT. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, if you want in the startup sense, we work together until we achieve those goals. And that's extremely fulfilling for people. If you can see that, I don't know, the forecasting and replenishment system that you've just built resulted in 27 tons of fresh vegetable per week not going to waste.
That's good, yeah.
You're changing the world.
Cool. Yeah, that's really cool.
So, for instance, that's how we try to tell the story. The amount of work, the number of projects is going to be really large for the next 5 years, probably, as we're doing those migrations. Mm-hmm. But like I said, it's not only replacing old with new, it's making a better new. Lots of new features, lots of innovation.
Sounds interesting. It's kind of sounds like, you know, building a big startup.
Yeah, it's a rather large startup. I like to think of it as like 64 startups. That's the number of product teams that we have. 64? Mm-hmm. Okay. I would like each of these teams to think like their own little IT company. Mm-hmm. You know, they have to create value, right? Because there's a customer supposed to pay for what they spend. Why would that customer pay for it? Because there's a value in what their product delivers. A very clear economic focus in the product team saying, hey, we've done something good today. We delivered a feature that is good for our customer. It saves money, it makes money, it improves something. You go home, you think, I've added value. Okay, that's the mentality we will have in those teams.
That's cool. I mean, we talked a lot about projects and software development and the companies and your career path, but from a personal perspective, how do you manage to stay up to date with technology? Because I found out that you are actually a quite nerdy guy.
Thank you. Yeah, it's true. You know, you're right.
Like, do you still code?
I do. I try to. You know, as a manager, of course, I'm not as hands-on anymore. I lead IT teams, which I enjoy a lot, working with great IT people. But, you know, I started the career path because I love technology. Mm-hmm. So I had to find a way to get back my love of technology, which in the end, for me, means playing around with new things. So I've made it a point over the last, I think, 10 years to teach myself a new coding language, a new programming language every summer. So I take a week and I try to learn the syntax and the ins and outs of new things, just to keep me, you know.
How do you do that actually?
Well, it all works online. If you find tutorials and video courses, or you know, even written ways, not so much into books anymore, because I really like to play around while I go. So I always have the EDI open, or I try to code while I learn.
What's your approach like? I mean, that's, I think, also interesting for people who are watching us and you know, want to learn the first programming language. Do you, for example, just learn the language, or do you learn it based on a concrete project?
I pick a problem. I pick a problem
perfect.
I want to solve, and then I challenge myself to solve it with a piece of technology or a language or a bit of hardware that I'm not familiar with yet. So to give you an example, currently I'm playing around with the Internet of Things and home automation. So after moving back to Austria, new house, and I had a chance to,
So what's your problem?
currently interconnecting the many different protocols, and there are frameworks for that. So I'm currently using Home Assistant, which is an open source project trying to integrate many of those proprietary protocols, but not all of them. So I found a few things that I'm very fond of that I used in the past that didn't have the integration. So I'm playing around with Python on a very message level, if you will, and MQTT at the moment, passing data back and forth between the various systems in my house with simple things, like synchronizing my alarm clock with opening the blinds, which is a solved problem unless your blinds don't interoperate with the protocols that they are, and that is what makes you try to fix the problem yourself.
How much time do you spend on that?
Not enough.
When you're a busy guy, so
not enough. Yeah, as much as I can. If it's a couple of hours every month on the weekend when everybody else is sleeping, that's a lot. That's luxurious. Yeah, but then again, it keeps me happy. Like I said, technology makes me happy. The more I can use it, the more I can, teach myself about it. The happier I am.
And you've learned Python that we learned now. What other languages did you learn over the past summers?
Here's the list. Probably not in chronological order. I played around with Lua, with Swift, with Python, with Ruby, a little bit of R. And before that, it was older stuff, PHP, things like that. It depends on the problem.
Yeah. What did you do with Swift?
Playing around, making apps on the new stack. I used to do apps 10 years ago, but always using frameworks. Never native, always with frameworks. Had to see what's possible now. So, semi-excited.
What frameworks did you use or try out?
For instance, Corona is a game building framework which uses Lua as a language, where you can easily do things like 2D games for Android and for iOS. Interactive physics engine included. Lots of fun to play around.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So you are in home automation.
Currently, yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. Do you already know your plans for next summer?
I do not. But I hope to have the time to pick an interesting project. What I like to do more of is applications of IoT. Yeah? So they have reached the peak of the hype cycle. Now we're looking for real applications. Yeah. People thought a couple of years ago that RFID chips on products in retail would be the solution to all the problems, including expiry date issues and logistic chain issues. They turned out not to be. Turned out not to be. Course, too expensive, too hard to handle, too high error rates. If we could do things based on camera vision, just tracking the barcode with high-resolution cameras of products would be the same thing. We could achieve a lot of the things that we wanted to do with RFID chips by just doing that. Of course, you need to build an ecosystem. So if you want a unique code on a product, unique to the product, not to the category or the type of product, like this liter of milk has an expiry date of X, you need to extend the ecosystem to the producer. So you need to establish a standard that tells them to identify that very product already as unique. And that's going to be a challenge. But playing around with that and seeing what works, that would be an interesting challenge for next summer.
Yeah, okay. That's from the personal point of view, but from the work-related point of view, I mean, you're in top management, meaning that probably you are working a lot on planning and budgeting and negotiation and decision making and so on. Do you get time to actually also work on the projects a bit hands-on with the people, or how included and engaged are you within the project itself?
You could say that budget and strategy and business should be the main priorities, but for a job of mine, I like to add architecture and how we do things as well. That's just as important. So, for instance, in designing that new stack, I try to spend as much time as possible right at the whiteboard, pen in hand, with the architects, thinking about what works, what's not working, what do we need to be careful with. You know, I have a little bit of experience, you could argue, with things like resilience and cybersecurity and other requirements. So I'm trying to be involved in the technical details as much as I can. I will never be an expert for any of the topics, obviously. Yeah? But I enjoy that part of my contribution as being important, just as much as budget and all the other things. Yeah? So I'm trying to make time for it, of course.
I mean, at the end, you are the guy who absolutely needs to have the big picture as well on everything.
Yep, it's a pretty big picture by now, but you're right.
So 64 teams, so next step 128, or?
You know, the organization will scale. We build it in a way that once a team becomes too big, it can, like the cells in the human body, separate, split up. There is 2 new teams. Looking at the amount of work coming our way, that might be necessary. You know, it's the curse of the good people. The more good stuff you deliver, the more it will be asked for and demand goes up. So I'm hoping that our plans work out really well and the business will be so happy that we want to do even more. And then it will be more people, more teams.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Maybe we are slowly coming towards the end. Maybe, I mean, you've made a great career. Not every developer wants to be a manager at some point, but quite a few would like to. I mean, what could you give some advices for young tech talent who are working in software development and want to, you know, have a successful career, no matter in what direction? Like, what was your kind of recipe for success?
I think if you want to go in the direction of management at any stage of that journey, you need to consciously dedicate time. Early in the journey, you have a lot of time dedicated to technology and a little bit of time to people, and that has to change during your journey. The higher you get in your career, the more steps you take, the more you need to focus on people. And that is not always natural behavior for someone who loves technology like me. So you need to block the time, reserve time, saying the moment I get responsible for a team, it's time to dedicate 50% of my time just looking after the people and only 50% for the technology part. And the higher you get, the more it is about people. You will learn that the results that you want to achieve are no longer your own by doing it hands-on yourself. They will be your own because you have created a team and enabled them and given them everything they need for them to deliver your result. So that mindset.
But you rely on them, so you need to.
Absolutely. So that mindset shift doesn't come naturally often, but it helps if you say, okay, I block time in my calendar. At those times, I will just look after the team. I will do recruiting, interviewing, people development, making sure the team is happy. And the more you do it, you see how effective it is and how much more output and outcome there is. And that's what will take you on that path. Does it then, with time, become a, let's say, no-brainer, like a habit? It does. But of course, before you choose to go into that path, you have to try it. You have to see if you like it. There is many people also now during the reorganization I talked about who had responsibility for teams. So they became people managers who now said, that's all good and great and I enjoyed it, but going forward in the new organization, I want a different role. I want to go back to where I came from. I want to be the expert. I want to be an architect, the deep technically involved person, which is fine as well. You know, you need to think about where you can create value and what you enjoy, because only if you're really happy about what you're doing, your results will be great. Okay, you can't live against your own nature on a permanent basis. It just doesn't work. Okay, so you need to be brutally honest about how you want to work when you come from such a technology background, whether you want to stay there, focus on that, or go more into the people area.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think this was a quite interesting discussion. We talked a lot about your career, obviously. We talked about data, about blockchain. We talked about computer vision. We talked about, what else did we talk about?
Lots of things, innovation.
A lot of things, really a lot of things.
The great future in retail.
Yeah, the retail sector, obviously, as you're working there now, but also like, I think we talked really a lot about data and data data-driven decisions. I think that's something you love, data.
I do.
You love working with people. You still love technology. That's why you learn a new programming language every year or every summer. You could actually, use Swift to make an app that is then connected with your home automation system and so on. So that could be maybe a challenge for next year.
There goes my summer. Okay.
Yeah. So that's an idea. We have some great people who can maybe
help.
People. Yeah. So Andreas, it was really a big pleasure talking with you.
Thank you for having me.
I'm sure it was not the last time. So if you still want to share something with the audience at the end, now it's your chance.
Thank you for having me. Super happy to be here. Also to be able to tell the story of where we are going with retail. You're right with your observation. It seems that I'm again in the situation where we're starting out something new, where a big change, a big transformation is going to happen. So if retail 10 years from now is fully digitalized, way more data-driven than it is today, then I think we've achieved the mission. Everyone watching who got interested in that, I'd be more than happy to have a chat. So like I said, we are looking for a lot of good people, great IT talent. So if anyone wants to get in touch, I'd be more than happy. They want to be part of that challenge. Look back at what we did 10 years from now and said we changed the world of retail. That would be the chance to do so.
Yeah, so. Looking forward to seeing this coming. As Andreas already said, if you want to work on these kind of projects, and if you want to work together with Andreas and maybe also help him, pimp his home automation system,
yes, please.
then reach out to him or to REWE. Thanks again.
Thank you.
And see you soon again, maybe.
Hopefully. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Thank you.